You're about to listen to a new episode of Audio Signals. Get ready to take a journey into the known, the unknown, and everything in between. Recorded at no specific point in time nor space, ITSP Magazine's co-founders Marco Ciappelli and Sean Martin follow their passion and curiosity as they venture away from the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society to discover new stories worth being told. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Nintex is the global standard for business process management and automation. The Nintex platform helps their clients accelerate progress on their digital transformation journeys by quickly and easily managing, automating, and optimizing business processes. Learn more at nintex.com.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody listening right now. This is Marco Ciappelli with ITSP Magazine, and the channel is, we have many, but this is Audio Signals, where we don't have to talk about cybersecurity, we don't have to talk about technology, but we're probably going to talk about society because I really don't know how not to talk about society. And this is one of those people that, again, you're probably bored with this, but I've become part of the Mentor project, as you probably have heard many times already, at the beginning of the year. And I've met so many cool people and people that have been listening to our show, that have listened to even already Deborah, which is one of the founders. And today, guess what? It's another person from the Mentor Project, and she was one of the first mentors. So she's probably going to give us some little bit of history and how this came together. But then we're just going to have a nice conversation, and we'll see where it goes. So we have Irene Yachbes with us. And Irene, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. It took a little bit to get to talk. We had few postponing, but hey, you know what? All the good things, you have to wait a little bit. Yeah. So I'm looking forward for this conversation.
Me too.
Perfect. So how about we start from the beginning? And the beginning is you. And as I like just to have people introduce themselves. I don't like to read a bio or anything like that. So Tell me what's up with you and your career, as much or as little as you like, and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. And I'm really glad that we made the time to meet. This is a lot of fun. So again, my name is Irene Yachbes. I have worked in different parts of what we'd call the tech industry for, I don't know, it's probably like over 20 years now. So I actually started out in the space industry. I got my undergraduate degree in Aerospace Engineering and then master's in technical management. And that kind of came out of a childhood dream of being an astronaut, but I get nauseous in a car, so it wasn't going to happen for me to go to space. So I did really want to enable space exploration, and I got to do that. My first job out of college, I was a spacecraft integration and test engineer on spacecraft that orbited the Earth. Went to comets. One that I had a fairly great role in was on a mission to the planet Mercury. And then I moved into another role, which was a little bit more on kind of like the business side. I went to work for a small robotics company in New York. They also did a lot of work for NASA, for the Department of Defense, for utilities and mining companies. But really, it was robotics in extreme environments. Where you only have so much control. A lot of it had to work autonomously. So I was a director of business development over there. So I was always looking for opportunities to pitch work to the government, to private entities, to get projects that our company could work on. So that was a ton of fun. I got to think about things like how would you collect samples from the moons of Saturn and Jupiter to better understand how we've gotten to this place in the universe, right? How the universe was made. Eventually, I took a complete turn and went into a different industry after 13 years being in space and robotics. I went into digital. I went to work for some, hot tech startups, working in things like marketing and advertising for really large customers in banking and telecommunications and retail and everything. Really got to understand digital and mobile very, very well, and the concepts of innovation, how you do innovation well in a human-centered, design-focused way. And lately, I've found myself at IBM. Right now, I work in IBM research. I get to work again, just like back in the day, in the space day. I get to work with researchers, research scientists, and engineers, and they're just some of my favorite kind of people to work with. They're fascinating. So I manage a team to create web applications specifically for a research community. I have a team of software developers, designers, project managers, product managers. I'm also a product owner for a particular application. And shortly I'll be moving into a new role, which is a little bit more of a senior role, working in the Chief Information Office in IBM, handling their events and meetings portfolio of tools, as well as their data analytics within the CIO, and also, getting to work with designers, continuing to work with designers, which is really a lot of fun for me. So that's kind of, where I am professionally. I also happen to have 2 kids, so 2 teens.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. I also happen to do that. I love it. I'm like taking notes, and every time you start saying something that you have done, I'm like, okay, we can talk about that. And then I'm like, no, wait, scratch that. We can talk about this because you've done a lot of really cool stuff. So
yeah, we can talk about them all.
We can talk about them all, and maybe there is a way, I'm thinking, to put everything together. So you started with first of all, I come from political science and branding, and then I ended up coming into cybersecurity and technology, and of course talk about the connection that we have with that. So I'm very fascinated by space. One of our last episodes we recorded for this show was actually about the Webb telescope and why we go to space. So when we start talking about robotics and all of that and space exploration, my eyes just light up. But you said something at the beginning that you did it because it was your dream when you were young. So I think that's a very important topic to talk about, dream, following your dream. And I'm sure we can connect it with mentorship and all of that kind of stuff. But how lucky have you been, and how good, of course, I'm sure you deserve every single portion of that dream to make it happen. So tell me about that dream when you were a kid.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And by the way, I think so much of our life's path is kind of happenstance when we have the dreams, the age that we are when we happen to have those dreams. So, I don't remember, I must have been probably ages 10 to 14 or something, where I happened to watch a movie about space. I mean, I happened to be looking back on it, was a horrible movie, but it did inspire me.
Doesn't matter, it inspired you.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. So that was, that was what I'd been thinking about. I used to, while I was supposed to be sleeping at night, I'd open my window and look out at the moon and the stars and think about, what are things like out there? And as I mentioned before, I don't think it was really in the cards for me to be an astronaut. Although these days, I think that if you have the money, you can be an astronaut, right? With commercial.
Apparently, everybody can be an astronaut.
Yeah. Hopefully, the price of that will come down, right? And we'll all get to experience it. It may be. When I was about 15 years old, I remember going to an event at the Cooper Union, which is a college in New York, where I live. And it was called Women in Engineering. And I didn't know anything about engineering, but I figured, let me check it out. And there was this panel of women who were talking about what they do for a living. And one woman said that she was an aerospace engineer, which is basically enabling space exploration with technology. And that just big light bulb over my head. It was just that moment where it's like, well, if I'm not necessarily going to go to space, I want to enable the things that get robots and people to space. So, when you're 15 years old, that's at the age where you're starting to think about, what do I want to study in college? So again, it's like that moment happened to be where I had that mentorship moment. Honestly, that woman had no idea who I was. I was sitting in an audience, but just by listening to her, that was a mentorship moment for me as a mentee. So I made a decision to study aerospace engineering in college, and it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. It was incredibly difficult. Sometimes it was incredibly dry, to be honest with you. Not everything is as glitzy as you would imagine it to be. But I am, I'm a really hard worker. Like I just, put my mind to something and I don't want to fail. So I just keep going at it. And eventually the content in my classes got more interesting, and I got this really cool opportunity. When I graduated from college, I had some very cool opportunities, just kind of like moments where I'd watch a rocket going over my head that I had just launched. I mean, just incredible experiences that you don't really have every day. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of how I got there. After a while, the industry was kind of a little bit slow. So I figured, I was in my 30s and I figured I'm not going to be able to retire in this kind of job. So let me see what else is out there. And so, like I said, I went into this completely different industry, and I've had great experiences there too. I really feel like every single experience that I've had in my life, in my career, whether at the time it was, amazing or miserable or difficult or easy, has led up to who I am today. And only in the last few years, I've really had this kind of moment of clarity to be able to say things like that, right? I mean, I was very insecure when I was younger, being in a field that's really complicated, dominated by older men when I was a young woman. It was really a lot for me to handle. And now I've realized that I've collected so many experiences and learnings, both in terms of my knowledge, my business knowledge, but also, people refer to this all the time, emotional intelligence, right? Being able to read people, read situations, and trust my instincts. And so, I feel like I've come to this moment in my career where I honestly believe that anything can be done if you put your mind to it and you really want to do it. It's called a growth mindset. And to be honest with you, it's something that I've learned even from my own 16-year-old son. I mean, I see him when he is trying to solve computer programming problems. It's just something that he's really excited about and decide to do on his own. And he will, fail 1,000 times and then really win big and never feel bad about it, right? He'll just keep learning and learning until he figures it out for himself, and never lets himself feel down. And that's something that I've learned, and I also share with people on my team. I encourage them, to keep learning, keep being willing to take risks, and to believe in themselves. I do think that if you work really hard on something, you know it better than just about anyone else. So there's no reason to have that imposter syndrome. It's really about believing that everything that you've done until that moment makes you the expert in the thing that you've been doing. So go for it.
That's such an important message. Many of them, I mean, the dreaming part, like I've talked to people that they realize how many people that are a little bit of a disadvantaged position, that they don't have that inspiration, that they may look at the star, but they think like, damn, I can never going to be able to be that person. And maybe that mentor that could be anybody. Even you mentioned, like, you go to a conference, somebody says something and it just sparkles something, or reading a book or watching a movie, right? And that inspiration, and that's mentorship that is going all over the places with just such a little thing. Like we talk about mentorship, and I talk about that with Deborah, with many other people from the Mentor Project, even like Susan, and we talk about lateral mentorship, right? How we are learning constantly from each other, which is really important. But you need that inspiration, and you're saying now that you get it from your son.
Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, inspiration comes from so many different parts, and it's just amazing. So tell me about the Mentor Project and how it seems like a perfect fit to get involved into that with the way that you see things. And so tell me about that, because the Mentor Project, it seems to me that it's been going around for a long time because I'm so new to it, but it's actually not that long ago that it was started.
Absolutely. So you're right. I mean, the Mentor Project has been around for a few years, but it hasn't been around forever. It's amazing how much the network has grown in the last couple of years. So when it started, Deborah Heiser and I have been friends for quite a few years now, and she was talking with me about how she met these guys. Bill Cheswick and Bob Cousins at a hackers conference, and how it really resonated with her that mentorship, which is something that she's studied for a while, comes so naturally for people in technology, right? And so those guys were founders in Silicon Valley kind of technology, and she had been talking to me about her idea of getting something going where people who have this knowledge can share it with others, especially as they grow and they maybe don't need to work as much anymore. They want to pass that along to others. And it happens to be, as I mentioned before, that I have worked my entire professional career in tech, and I also happen to have a kid who is interested in tech and really could benefit from the knowledge of others. So she asked me if I wanted to be involved, and I said absolutely yes. And I've had some really nice opportunities to do some podcasts like this, but also to go into classrooms or virtually and talk to kids. Most of the time I talk with them about my work in the space industry, and I kind of teach them a little bit about what's cool about things like astrobiology and things like that, because that tends to be the more interesting kind of stuff for kids. And I've also helped to create sort of a template for the Mentor Project hackathons too, right? So how do you help students to come up with great ideas, and how do we do that through a lens of mentorship as well, which is very uncommon with hackathons. The way that we do it is certainly very special. And I was just telling Debbie yesterday that I think that there are the clear benefits of mentorship where you feel like you want to give back to the community, you want to see children or others, maybe it's lateral professional mentors where you want to see them succeed. But of course, there's also the benefit to the mentor as well. And one of the things that I feel when I'm mentoring is that I feel the passion again for what I'm talking to people about. It makes me realize how much I've loved what I've done. And that keeps me going even after the conversation when I go back to work the next day. And I think to myself, this is something very special that I'm doing. It's not just the day-to-day for Irene. It's something that I've been really privileged to be able to work on. So that's, one great benefit to me. Another one is that when you can explain something to someone else, that is kind of the pinnacle of how good you can be at something, right? So like you can do a job, right? You can kind of get it done, but when you can explain that to someone else and show them how to do it, that is true expertise, right? Because there are much fewer questions about it if you have the ability to share that with others. So it's helped with me, with my passion and with my confidence, which is such a wonderful way to actually be a little selfish when it comes to mentoring too.
Yes, of course. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And you said something that made me think that it's kind of like looking back at your career, the many things that you've done, and maybe even I wish that would have been different, or like to say, wish I knew now what
Yeah.
what I didn't know back then, and then maybe try to make it happen for someone else. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. That motivates me to, like, for example, I'm thinking to now that I'm kind of new to this, but my mentor is probably going to be about podcasting and radio and mass media, and the passion again that I have into the old school radio, and how it connected people and all of that. It's kind of like I'm doing actually something I really love to do. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a job, but it is based on the experience that you had. So I completely agree with that. Now let's move this into how we can be mentor, not just for kids, but again, we mentioned at the beginning lateral mentorship, and God, I'm learning so much just being part of those call that we do with the other mentors, and how we're sharing opinion and things. And, it's amazing to be part of this group of people, but also bring it to mentorship, maybe in the business world as a team leader. And you mentioned emotional intelligence, those soft skill, and I'm doing the air quote right now for people not listening to the podcast, that I never feel like they're actually soft. They're really hard. They're really important when you're motivating, emotionally inspiring people, and not just telling people this is what you need to do. So how do you inspire in the business world as well? I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy when, let's say, for example, you're a manager, right? And you have a really open-minded team, and you have tons of opportunities to mentor them. But it's a little different when you're talking about, people who may be in a little bit of a different discipline from you, but they're kind of, at the same, I guess, professional level as you. I think it's important to be able to share with someone when you feel like they've done something that's really they've done a good job, right? I mean, one of the ways that I've learned from people is when they've given me positive feedback, and that's kind of like mentoring me, like, hey, you're on the right track. And that, again, it gives me the confidence to keep moving forward. I also learn all the time from people who are in other professions, and I just kind of pick up on little things here and there that I learn along the way. I could never do the same things as them, but I get little glimpses of insight into what's important. What are the key things that I should know?
Can you give me a couple of examples?
Yeah, I mean, I think without going into too much detail, I think I work in web applications now, and I work with people who are software engineers. I'm not a software engineer. I understand the basics of software engineering, but when they talk about things like, how do you know if it's a secure application? How do you know if it's a performant application? And what are kind of the things you need to look out for? I don't understand it on the deep level, but I understand the importance of it. And I might understand what are the pros and cons of doing things one way or another. When I was working at the robotics company, right, I was writing proposals to NASA for ideas of how you could take samples of rocks on other planets. And there's a lot that goes into that that's related to electromechanical engineering, right? Which, there are people who really specialize in certain areas of that. There are people who are, geologists, astrobiologists. We just get to learn from each other. They learn from me also, like, what does it mean to write a good project plan to propose to the government? So, their expertise might have been in this super technical area, but they also learned from me, how do you make that appealing so that someone will actually give you the funding to do that work? Right. So how do you share that you're the right team to do it, that you have the right plan to do it, so you will be entrusted with the government's funding in order to do that? So there have been lots of opportunities to really learn from one another. And, the mentors and the mentor project, I mean, it's just so fascinating. I get to learn from them all the time. just kind of observing people, how they interact with each other, how much they want to share, how much they care about one another and want to help one another. You really learn a lot from that.
Yeah. I love how you went into the business side, because I talk about that a lot, and how many good idea they haven't been developed as much as the kind of little less good idea, like the VHS versus
Yeah.
the competitor at the time, or other situation where marketing and branding has been making the difference, just because somebody's been able to sell their idea a little bit better than other. So being in the lab is important, but you need to be able to understand how to present it to others as well.
Yeah.
And so
That's
I
actually,
love that.
that's actually, a field that I've learned a lot more about these days, kind of related to being able to sell and brand. It's called user-centric design. And it's really understanding who is going to be your end user, understanding their journey, like how they come across your product and how they might use it, and what are all the different kinds of interactions they may have, and how do you make that as kind of frictionless and enjoyable as possible. And I think one of the byproducts of having to think that way is developing this tremendous empathy, right? It's an empathy for your end user, but it's also really natural to have an empathy for everyone else that you come in contact with, right? For your colleagues, for your coworkers, for your friends, for your family. It's kind of a different and really important way of thinking. And I think we need empathy now more than ever, right? I mean, everyone's been through so much. You never know what someone else is going through these days. So just, kind of putting yourself in someone's shoes, or understanding that there may be something going on in their shoes that you know nothing about. So have some heart whenever you interact with people.
Yeah, I totally agree. So do you think that empathy is that superpower that can really make a good leader? I mean, I know you can't just probably package it in one thing, but I mean, I'm asking you because my answer will be yes. I mean, you need to know what you're doing, but also you do need to be sure that you keep everybody motivated. And if somebody is having a bad day or needs a little bit extra, as they say, try to walk, a mile in somebody else's shoes and understand that. There may be a lot of pressure though by the company. And, maybe now we're a little bit more attentive to empathy, and maybe before it was a little bit different. So are we getting there? Also, as a woman in the tech industry, you mentioned that before, and I hear this story a lot in cybersecurity, right? Like how you have to work twice as hard to be listened to, and I hate that because I really don't think that way. But so empathy again, here you go. Back to that. So tell me about, like, have you seen, now that you're in a more like in a senior role, like the time has changed a little bit, or there is a long way to go for diversity, inclusion, and if you want to go there, if you want to talk about
absolutely.
that.
I mean, I think that diversity and inclusion are buzzwords right now, and I feel very fortunate that I work for a huge global corporation where that has just been their DNA for decades, right? And that they go out of their way to make sure that people do feel included, that women have great opportunities, and that managers lead with authenticity, and that they truly care about their people, that they care enough to give candid feedback in a way that's going to be valuable, not in a way that's going to hurt people. I've worked other places where I've worked with managers that, it's always felt kind of like the bottom line for them is what's important. But now it happens to be that I work somewhere where, the expectation is you're not necessarily going to be working in the same role forever. So how can we develop you as a person? And I'm the same way with people on my team, right? I say, I want to give you opportunities to work on projects that are really going to grow you, even if it means you're not going to be here in a year from now. And I would miss you if you left. Everybody on my team is incredible, but I do want to give people opportunities. One of the things that I think is very special about my team is that empathy is in their DNA, because of the way that they have to work in user-centered design, but also because they're just really good people and it's really natural for them. They go out of their way to help one another. Whenever someone is new to the team, they'll drop whatever it is they're doing and help that person. And that might slow them down in what they're doing at that moment, but ultimately kind of rises all the ships. And there's also, this is something that Google had some studies about this concept of psychological safety, right? Where if you're on a team, you feel like you can ask questions without feeling like they're stupid questions, or share ideas without fear that someone is going to think that they're ridiculous, or why are you asking those questions, right? Having that psychological safety ultimately makes for, first of all, a much more innovative organization, because even if you have 10 stupid ideas, if one of them is great, those odds are worth it, right? To have that kind of environment. And also just helps people work so much better as teams when they feel confident and comfortable with one another. So I think empathy matters a lot. I think it is something that does come naturally for many women, not necessarily all women, and it comes naturally for many men too. I've been very fortunate, especially in my time at IBM, that I dealt with leaders that had that authenticity. They expected a lot of me, but they also helped me to get there, and they were honest with me about how to get there, and they were honest with me about what they thought I was doing well at, and that just gave me the confidence to keep pushing through. So, I think it's really special when you see somebody who's an effective leader in a way that feels authentic and like they truly care about the people that they work with. That is very special.
Yeah, no questions about it. I wish everybody would think that way. But
Yeah.
I think more and more, I think time have changed. We're not there yet. We're really, really, really far. And sometimes I wonder, it's 2022. Are we still not there? And, society is the way it is. But, big step has been made. Many more steps to get where we could be really, respectful for everyone and open cultures and accept the fact that great things come from different perspectives. I think that's very important.
They do. And I think that there's been more of a realization in the last few years that it's very important to have diverse teams, especially, let's say, for example, in technology where you have consumers using your end product, right? If you have the same kinds of people that are developing these things, but you have a much, much, much more diverse group of end users, there are obviously going to be blind spots, right? Your products are not going to work well for everyone because, the people who are developing them are not in the mindset of all of their users. So I can tell you, for example, now I'm hiring for someone on my team in a technical role. And I decided, with some of my colleagues that we're going to wait until we get a more diverse slate of candidates to choose from, because I really want my team to be more diverse, because I don't want to have those blind spots, and because I do think it's critically important to build a pipeline of underrepresented minorities and women, especially in technology, so that, even if it's a entry-level role for them right now, that they can grow eventually into greater things in their career. And I, as a manager, feel that I have a responsibility to help create that pipeline, even if it means that, some of the work that I want to get done is going to be a little bit slower. I'm going to wait until I get more candidates to choose from and hopefully build opportunities both for them and for my team.
Yeah, and as you're saying this, and I will start wrapping our conversation, even if I do want to talk about robots and stuff like that, uh, maybe another time. I keep running parallels between what you're saying about business team and the way that we can do that by mentoring young generation. So not only with empathy, but telling them that dreams can come true, and that there is not such a thing as a stupid question, because
Right.
that's really important. I mean, if you do that with a kid, you can't judge them because they don't know something, and nobody knows everything. Come on, we
Yeah.
need to be humble about all of this. So
Yes.
if you had to give some, maybe three, I know I hate when I say that, but we're wrapping. So, three tips, the three most important things that you think that for mentoring someone or inspiring someone in a business team and leadership role. I mean, we know empathy, because you said that pretty clearly. What are the other two things that makes both a good mentor and a good leader? And I don't want to put you on the spot. So if they're one or three, whatever they are, I just want to add to that from your perspective, based on your experience.
Yeah, that's such a great question.
And I know it cannot be three. It's much more complex than that. But
Yeah,
in
yeah.
top of your mind right now, maybe now they're important, but tomorrow you're like, you know what? Maybe at the top three there is another one. So I say
Mm.
empathy, and then what?
I think it's also bringing people together and building consensus, even when things aren't obvious, right? Even when people are coming from different points of view, to kind of take all of those into account and to help people understand their different points of view and to build that consensus. That's not an easy thing to do. That's called stakeholder management, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of power in that, and it is a soft skill, and it's a very important one.
So
Uh,
put in differences, different perspective, different point of view to work together for a common goal.
yeah, yeah, and I think also as a leader, you need to be able to take all of those things into account, but then trust yourself that you are the one that has to make the decision at the end of the day, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know what you're doing better than anyone else, and you've taken into account all these different points of view. And at the end of the day, this is your decision, and that you're able to share it with all your stakeholders so they understand that you've done the homework. You really have made this decision based on all of these different factors. That's in kind of a business context. I'd like to think now a little bit more about the context with kids, right? And I'm thinking back to some of the moments where I've mentored kids, where I've talked to them about my experience in the space industry, and they ask me questions, and the other kids in the room are giggling, right? Because it sounds like a stupid question, but
Mm.
actually the underlying piece of their question is so right to the heart of what's important. And I say, that's a great question. That's not the case right now, but what we've thought about is blah, blah, blah. Like, let's say, for example, I had, a third grader ask me, do we have, people living on Mars? I think a lot of people know that there aren't people living on Mars, but I can explain to them that that's what we're aiming for. And here are all of the obstacles that are getting in the way of that. And here are the technologies that would enable us to do that. And here's why it would be so amazing for us to get there one day. And it really puts a spark in their eyes, and it puts a spark in my eye as well. So I think it's about being able to listen to questions and find the nuance underneath all of it, and be able to share something that hopefully this person didn't know before, and that will inspire them and will inspire you.
I was going to close with what would be the things that you say to the kids like you were looking at the stars, dreaming to be an astronaut and work in space, and you just answered to that. So you just saved me the time to ask that question, although I did it in retrospective after you just
I do
answered.
want to say, though, Marco, that I think that it's super rare for someone when they're 15 years old, 16 years old, 17, to actually know what they want out of life,
Oh, I
right?
totally agree.
I mean, what a huge gamble you're taking when you are, deciding, hopefully, if you decide that you're going to college or if you're going to step into a career at that moment, that it just happens to be whatever you're interested in at that time, or maybe you're not interested in anything, right? So I think, kids should know that it's okay if they don't know what they want right away. They're going to learn so much along the way anyway. And I changed my career. There's some statistic that people change their careers 3, 4, 5 times in their lives. So, just absorb as much as you can, have as much fun as you can, learn as much as you can. Try not to stress out about having your whole life figured out when you're 17 years old, because you have your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah, and as you said before, don't be afraid to ask questions and to go for it. And if you fail, just get up again and do it. I mean,
exactly.
That's really important. Well, Irene, I think your story is an inspiration, and what you do with the Mentor Project and with your job every day, it is also. And I hope that people that listen to this, especially if there are, younger generation listen to this, they do listen to this advice and they go for it. So I really enjoy this. I've learned a lot of things, and hearing you and being part again of the Mentor Project that connected us, and I hope we can do a lot more things together, because I know there is a lot on the plate there. So eventually we'll all work on something at the same time. So thank you so much. Feel free to come back any time you have an interesting story to share. I'll be more than happy to listen to it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net.
Nintex is the global standard for business process management and automation. The Nintex platform helps their clients accelerate progress on their digital transformation journeys by quickly and easily managing, automating, and optimizing business processes. Learn more at nintex.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Audio Signals. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society, and some even beyond that.